Hey, welcome to another video. So today we're going to be going into the powers and abilities of Darth Nihilus. But before we begin, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, let's get straight into it. So for a bit of an overview, Darth Nihilus was a human male who reigned as Dark Lord of the Sith during the era of strife following the Jedi Civil War. Before becoming a Sith Lord, he lost everything during the Galactic Republic's war against the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders. He survived the activation of the Mass Shadow Generator superweapon during the war's final battle at the planet of Malachor V, which surrounded the planet with a destructive spatial phenomenon known as the Mass Shadow. Experiencing the shadow that obliterated almost everything on and around the planet made Nihilus crave Force energy. The affliction painfully ravaged his body while rendering him a wound in the Force. He was found by a seeker of these, the former Jedi Kreia, who became the Sith Lord Darth Traya, and told him that she could teach him to feed his endless hunger. He accepted her offer of apprenticeship at the Trayus Academy on Malachor V, where he, over time, became one of 3 concurrent Dark Lords of the Sith. Together, they formed a triumvirate, with Darth Traya at its head, and her other apprentice, Darth Sion, as the 3rd member. The trio chose individual titles for themselves, Darth Nihilus becoming the Lord of Hunger. The apprentices grew in strength throughout their training, and eventually overpowered their master. Sion defeated Traya, while Nihilus sapped her energy. The 2 Sith then combined power to sever her connection to the Force, and sent her into exile. Nihilus' affliction developed to the point where the Dark Lord was forced to call upon the dark side of the Force, to encase his spirit within his mask and armor to stay alive. He and Sion then began a Jedi purge, causing the virtual extinction of the Jedi Order. Nihilus was responsible for the devastation of the planet Qatar in 3952 BBY, killing and absorbing the Force energy of the Jedi at the Conclave on Qatar, along with every other living being on the world to save one Miraluka woman named Vises Mar. Mar was collected from the surface, and Nihilus began to train her as his shadow hand. 1 year later, Nihilus sensed a growing presence in the Force, and sent Mar out to eliminate it. That presence was a woman exiled from the Jedi Order, Mitra Surik, who was on a quest to find the few Jedi Masters who had survived the Purge, with the aid of Darth Traya, who had put away her Sith trappings and identified herself once more as Kreia. When Mar attempted to assassinate Surik, the exiled Jedi defeated her and convinced her to turn to the light side in the process. Although Nihilus returned to lurking the fringes of known space, he was eventually tricked by Kreia into initiating the Battle of Talos IV in an attempt to absorb a Jedi Academy that lacked any Force sensitives aside from the headmistress. Nihilus met a large Republic and Mandalorian fleet at Talos IV that distracted him. Meanwhile, his flagship, the Ravager, was secretly boarded by a small force consisting of Surik, Mar, Mandalore the Preserver, and his Mandalorians. The trio confronted and slew Nihilus in the ensuing duel, while the Mandalorians rigged explosives that destroyed the ship. The Sith Lord's armor maintained his spirit and was collected for burial on the Sith homeworld of Korriban, where his soul could be contacted with a holocron of his own creation. Darth Nihilus was a man who always craved greater power. However, unlike most Sith Lords, he cared very little for the Sith as an organization. Nihilus saw death as the sole purpose of life, and power as the means to achieve it. He was cautious, as his actions during the campaign against the Jedi showed, and was known as an aggressive, dominant figure who would not want to abide a threat to his power. Nihilus was once a human male, with black hair coiled finely into strips that he tied together behind his head. After he indulged in his hunger for the dark side, he lost his corporeal form, preserving his existence only by having his spirit linger within his mask and armor. The Dark Lord fully embraced his condition, as the mysterious and monstrous facets of it instilled in people who met him a deep-rooted fear upon which he could prey. Ceasing to feel fear and other emotions, he became an entity of pure intent. Nonetheless, Nihilus was still human enough to have some feelings, as his bond with Mar persisted until their confrontation on the Ravager. She was his only apprentice, and her betrayal was met with much anger. His speech was a jarring system of screeches and roars that only his closest servants and confidants could understand. As a result, the Sith Lord was usually silent, but always heard when he spoke. During combat, Darth Nihilus fought in an aggressive, one-handed style. He had learned some of the greatest of the Sith teachings, but such practices took the form of dependence. They would make him stronger, but only for a time, and he would have to feed upon the Force energy to replenish his strength. For this reason, Force sensitives and worlds rich in the Force would draw him. His reach in the Force eventually extended to the point where he could feel Force users throughout the galaxy. To find planets, he would then cleanse entirely, killing everything who was touched by the Force. Prolonged use of this power made him a threat to all life, as his craving grew more intense with each feeding. Eventually, Nihilus' hunger controlled him, not the other way around, and the Sith Lord would instinctively feed upon those around him, slowly killing them. Nihilus' very speech caused pain and death to all who heard it, and those who served him became utter slaves in time. His ability was somewhat similar to Treya's influence upon others. The reconvened Jedi Council and the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine inferred that the Sith had somehow learned this ability to feed on the Force from her. Darth Nihilus was adept in many aspects of the Force. He used his dark variant of the Sever Force ability to betray Darth Treya, alongside Darth Sion by stripping her of the Force and casting her out of the Sith Order. Nihilus could also use the Force to lift starships, as he did on Malachor V with the Ravager. He tore it from the mass shadows that surrounded the planet, and kept it together even though it had suffered extensive structural damage. Through the Force, Darth Nihilus was able to escape death by containing his consciousness in his armor, an ability that Darth Krayt would inquire of Nihilus Holocron a millennia later. He was also proficient in Dark Rage, Farsight, Force Lightning, Force Resistance, Force Scream, Force Plague, and Force Whirlwind, among others, such as a dark variant of Force Healing called Dark Healing. His knowledge also extended to Sith alchemy. During the Second Battle of Onderon, Nihilus' sect of Sith followers used techniques that would bend and tame beasts to their will. Nihilus could increase the strength of the Force powers he used greatly, if he wished, and he was capable of reaching through the Force at a range as far as a star system. So what do you guys think of the powers and abilities of Darth Nihilus? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you have any other suggestions on who I should cover, please let me know as well. Otherwise, have a great day or night, and I hope to see you in the next video.